Well, welcome back to Life on Cars. Hope you're okay. And in today's episode, I'm going to tackle the misfire that I've got going on the MR2 and see if we can find out why the engine's running a little bit poorly. It's not right and it's getting on my nerves, so it's one to get sorted off and ticked off the list. So come on, let's go. So how am I going to go about this then? So on this video, you'll see me start with some of the basics of checking the engine on the spark plugs, for example. But then after that, what you'll see me do is move on to the coolant temperature sensor, because on this type of fuel injection system that's on this MR2, the coolant temperature sensor, that's the sensor that feeds information to the engine control unit on the temperature of the coolant. That's a really vital component on this system. And because it seems to be running rich and misfiring and etc., I've got to try and rule that out, because basically if that temperature sensor is giving the wrong information to the engine's computer and telling the engine's computer that the engine's already warmed up, for example, then it wouldn't be putting enough fuel in. Or if it was telling the engine's computer that the engine was cold when in fact it was hot, it'd be putting too much fuel in. So this one little sensor is a really important sensor that we're going to check out. So you'll see that on the video, and then you'll see as we progress through this, and see if we can find a solution to the poor running on this MR2. Right, first rule of any diagnostics, start with the basics. So I know a bit about the service history on this, and it was serviced a year ago, because there was thoughts it was going to go back on the road, but that didn't happen. So I know it got the usual, it got the air filter, plugs, fuel filter. However, since then, as I've mentioned before, it's basically been stood around and been moved around in and out of storage. So the plugs need to be checked because they're probably fouled, I imagine. I want to check the gap anyway. So let's get cracking. Although these are quite a fiddly car to work on in terms of the engine, getting to the plugs isn't too bad. We've just got to fish these leads out in between the manifold and wind them out. So come on, there we are. Right. Whoa. Okay. Spark plug gap on these should be 0.8. Right, I'm going to use a magnet to fish them out. Okay, as expected, a little bit sooty, so I'm going to give them a bit of a wire brush first. Okay, so that's them cleaned up. They all look in really good condition, decent ones as well. NGK R's with the split fire electrode, so that's good. So let's just get the gap checked. Okay, so that's currently gapping at 40 thousandths of an inch, which is a bit too big. Should be 0.8, which is about 32. We're funny us Brits, aren't we? I mean, as an old school mechanic, I still measure spark plugs in imperial, because I can remember that these should be 32. So you can see there that that's too big. So I'm just going to close these down a bit by knocking them. That's better. 32. Alright, that's them all gapped to 0.8. Let's get them back in. So the other thing I have done, just as a bit of a visual check, is just to make sure that all the air box and everything and the vacuum pipes are all tight and I can't see anything loose that would cause an air leak, which would also give us our symptoms of poor running. But everything seems in situ. So the only other thing I'm going to do a quick diagnostic ECU check to see if there's any codes in the ECU. So these Toyotas have an early version of onboard diagnostics. So you see this little cap here, you can take that off. And inside there, there's a number of different terminals, as you can see. And what we're looking for is TE1 and E1. And you can bridge those two terminals together and it puts it into the diagnostic mode. So I've just put a little jumper cable across there and I'm going to pop the ignition on now and take a look at the dashboard. So you can see there the engine management light is flashing on and off rapidly, which tells me that there's no fault codes stored in the ECU. This is an early, what they call a blink code system. So Toyota quite cleverly, back in the day, the computer on the car, the ECU that controls the engine, can quite cleverly store codes if there's an open circuit in a sensor or if it's picking up some fault somewhere, and it would then flash out a code. But because this is just flashing on and off constantly, that means there's no code stored. So I can remove my bridging cable. Right, so we've got the spark plugs clean and gap. We know that there doesn't seem to be any problems with the intake system. There doesn't seem to be any air leaks or anything loose on the vacuum side. I've done a diagnostic check. There's no faults stored. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get the thing fired up, get it warmed up, and then I'm going to do some checks on the coolant temperature sensor. As I mentioned at the start of the video, they are known for causing problems on these. And because it's an old diagnostic system, it wouldn't necessarily pick up if the sensor was stuck or frozen or maybe not giving the right value out. It's not clever enough to suss that out on the diagnostics. So the only way we can do that is to do a manual check on the sensor. So to do that, I'm going to do a quick check while the engine's cold to see what it's reading, and then I'm going to warm the engine up, and you'll be back with me shortly and we'll have a chat about the results. Okay, situation report. Right, so tonight I've been having a bit of a play around with the engine to see if I can get it running better or to try and discover what's going on. And the situation so far is I've took the plugs out and they were quite sooty and dirty, but that was probably because it's being moved in and out of the storage facility where it was bought from and not got up to temperature for a long time. So, and they were good plugs. So cleaned the plugs up, put them back in, and the engine was running much better. So I got it up to temperature, and then I decided to check the coolant temperature sensor. So let me show you how I went about doing that. So there's our temperature sensor down there. As you can see, what I've done is I've just unplugged it. That's the plug. And I've put a couple of cables with the little tiny connectors directly onto the pins so that I can probe them properly. And I've just had it up to operating temperature with the fans coming on, and we're getting about 215 ohms. Now the spec for these is it should go down to 100 ohms at kind of 90 degrees. Now it might be that it's just maybe not quite getting hot enough in there due to the thermostat or whatever, but it's kind of telling me that this temperature sensor is working okay, to be honest, because when I measured it when the engine was cold, well, when I say cold, it was about 12 degrees today here in England, and it was coming up with about 4 or just nearly 5,000 ohms, which is about right. So there's our meter, and I'm just going to pop these probes on so you can see what's going on as the engine cools down. So there we are, we've got the multimeter on, and as you can see there, I mean, the engine's cooling off a bit now, and you can see the resistance is rising as it should be. So so let me just recap. So I checked it when the engine was cold, when it was probably about 12 or 13 degrees currently here in the UK, so the coolant temperature will have been similar, and the reading came out at around 4,000 ohms, which is in spec or thereabouts for when the engine's cold. And then I've had the engine right up to temperature with the fans running, and it did go down to a couple of hundred ohms. Now, according to the scale that you can read from Toyota, they say that it should go down to about 100 ohms when the thermostat's open and the coolant temperature is right up to full operating temperature. Now I have a sneaking suspicion that this is running a little bit cool. So give or take, you know, it might not have been hot enough to get it right down to 100 ohms, but what I'm trying to say is it seems to be, you know, it's not wildly out. So for example, when the engine was cold, if I found that the coolant temperature sensor was reading like what it is now, 700 ohms, when the engine was cold, then that's obviously nowhere near. Or if, let's say now, while the engine's warmed up, it's still quite warm, the coolant's probably 50, 60 degrees now, then that, and let's say that was reading 4,000 ohms, then obviously it would be over-fueling through the coolant temperature sensor, but it's not. It's you know, it's around about where it should be. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think the coolant temperature sensor is causing my problem with rough running. So I can't really go much further with the coolant temperature sensor tonight. I think it's operating pretty much how it should be. The only thing I can do next on the coolant temperature sensor would be to take it out and put it in some boiling water and see if it does go right down to about 100 ohms. But my gut feeling is the sensor's not really causing my issue. So as you can see, it's still not quite right. It's just got a bit of a miss on it, which is making me think that I do need to rule a couple of other things out. So it looks like it's had the leads, the ignition leads, replaced at some point. So I mean, you can do a resistance check on those. So it might be worth doing that if I don't find anything else on the ignition side. But I'm gonna, before I go in tonight, I'm gonna whip the cap off, the distributor cap, and just have a look and check that the terminals and everything are okay in there. Because if it's struggling, if it's not firing properly, then that would give us the same problems that we're having, where we're getting a bit of unburnt fuel smell. And it's weird though, because when I had it up and running earlier on, after I cleaned the plugs, I took it for a short drive to get it warmed up, and it appeared to be running fairly well. And but then once it's been kind of idling for a bit, it seems to start to miss again. So it's not happy. I mean, it's not where I want it to be. So yeah, let's get the distributor cap checked and make sure there's nothing going on in there. You can see that temperature sensor is still doing what it's supposed to be doing. Anyway, I need to get that disconnected and get the leads out of the way. So this is the distributor cap down here. Tell you what, it's bringing back memories working on this, how tight everything is. But basically there's two screws holding the cap on, so it shouldn't be too bad to get to. You can just make one out there, a little looks like an 8, I think if I remember rightly, the 8mm, and then there's another one down there as well, and then the cap should come off and we'll have a look inside. Let's get the multimeter out of the way first. There's them two little test leads that it's just basically two little terminals that I've taken out of an old connector which go onto the plug for the coolant temperature. It just saves you trying to poke around in the dark. So yeah, it's a handy thing to have that. Just a couple of spare mini terminals. Okay, let's just move the multimeter out of the way. Right, see if I can get my hands down here. So it's got previous owners fitted a set of Mk2 leads, but looks like the King lead is original. Yeah, the King leads looks like the original one going to the coil. Anyway, disconnect that. And then I need to get in with an 8mm now. See if I can hang this light up somewhere. There we are. Yeah, they're a bit fiddly to work on, these MR2s. You have to kind of get used to working in tight spaces. If I remember rightly as well, these bolts that hold the cap on, oops, might need an extension on there. They will fall if you take them all the way out, so you need to try and catch them in your hand. Get on. To get that lined up onto there. I think we'll go the other side of that pipe. Nope, that's not going to work. Okay. There we are. Alright, that's slackened off. I should be able to get that with my fingers now. So, there's a little nut that I've just slackened off under there. Might not be quite slack enough, let's see. Oh yes, I've got it. I think there's only two. So there's that one. Right, let's see if I can get the other one. I've taken my gloves off because you can't feel what you're doing otherwise. Doing these little tiny screws. Wow. There's the other one. Alright, so the king lead's disconnected, so we should be able to just swing this out now and have a look at it. See if we can get you guys perched somewhere so you can see what's going on. Like a couple of drain things on the bottom. Let's have a look in here. Oh Jesus. Bloody hell, that doesn't look very good in there. Doesn't look very good at all, guys. It looks like the well, can you see that the centre terminal has disintegrated? So there should be a spring-loaded little carbon brush there, but it's disappeared. It's just gone. Pretty sure it should be a spring-loaded one on these. And the terminals don't look very good either, do they? Oh dear. Alright, okay, so that definitely needs replacing. I'm not happy with that at all. That centre terminal looks like it's disintegrated. So that will have to be replaced. And if I'm doing that, I might as well change this rotor arm. So if I remember rightly, I think they're just held on by a couple of screws. Let's see if we can get that rotor arm off. Yeah, it's not good at all, that cap. That'd be the original one, that. Yeah, it's got Denso. It's got Denso on it, it's the original cap. Okay, I'll have to source one of them. Let's see if we can get this rotor arm off. So I think there's a screw in there. Yep. And there's a screw underneath. Kind of opposite it. And again, I think these are these will fall out if you don't catch them. So let's just try this top one. And there's the gasket, look, for the be careful we don't lose that. That should be sat over that lip like that. Ooh, get back on, there we are. See if we can fish these screws out of here. Put my hand underneath in case it falls. Right, there's one. Little Phillips screw. The other one's underneath. I hope I don't drop this. Otherwise I'll be going fishing. Oh, got it. There it is. Right. Put them to one side somewhere safe. This should just come off now. It's looking quite tight. Oh, look at that. So that's been arcing in there, hasn't it? Look at the pattern in there. That's definitely been arcing. So I think that the cap should definitely have a spring-loaded centre terminal. Okay, best get one of them ordered then. There's no point in going any further until we know the ignition system's right. So we'll get a cap for it, we'll get a rotor arm, and see if that makes any difference. It's going to be a process of elimination, I think, on this. Right, exciting day. We've got some new parts. So we've got a new Bosch rotor arm and gone with a genuine Toyota distributor cap. Wasn't cheap, but it was the only one that is the correct fitment that I can find for the ignition leads. This one has the standard 8mm ignition leads. A lot of these caps online that are reproduction have the smaller ignition lead terminals, so I had to go genuine. This was about £70 from MR2 Ben, so not a bad price. Got us a bit of discount compared to the Toyota price. So let's see if it will fit. Oh, and by the way, as you can see there, yes, it should have a spring-loaded centre terminal. So I'm keeping everything crossed that this is going to improve the way this engine runs. So let's get them on. It's one screw in. Right, that's both them screws tight. Okay, so it looks the correct part, so that's good news. So I'm going to swap the leads over one at a time, so we don't get them mixed up. Feel like they're going in okay. And then we need to put our king lead on. Looks like it's going to be easier to bolt it up and then do the king lead last, because it's kind of in the way. Managed to find these new bolts that I've had in my toolbox for about 20 years. These look like the exact same shape and size as the original ones, so we'll have these new ones in, and then we'll attach the king lead afterwards. Right, that's the king lead on, and the bolts tightened in. Cables are routed okay. I think we're ready for a start up, everybody. Well, it certainly seems a lot more responsive on the throttle there, doesn't it? A lot more responsive on the throttle. Guess I'm going to have to warm it right up and see what happens, because normally with misfires and things like that, they get worse when the engine gets to fully operating temperature. So it seems a lot more responsive on the throttle there, so fingers crossed we might be going in the right direction here. It's good news, it's cured the misfire. I've just had it right up to temperature and had a little sneaky run around the block there, and it's solved it. It's solved the misfire, so I'm over the moon about that. Absolutely over the moon. Come and have a look. It's more like it. I'm just going to finish this video off just to show you the results of many hours of polishing. Just want to show you how the paintwork's come off and see what you think. It's not perfect, but I didn't expect it to be perfect, but it has come back quite well. Let's have a quick look. looking too shabby, is it? It's this is the best side because the colours on the top of the door and the wing match. Forget the wheels, they're going to go very soon. But yeah, it's really pleased with how the paintwork's coming together. It's took a lot of hours to get it to where we are now, but yeah, it's just this side. There's a little bit of a, I don't know whether it's going to come through on the camera, but there's a little bit of a mismatch on the top of the driver's side wing and the top of the door, but it's livable for now, and it may improve with a bit more further polishing. And the mirrors aren't brilliant either. They're a little bit dull, but yeah, it's there's a little bit of damage to the wing here on the edge of the wing, but it's nothing, it's negligible. So yeah, what's next then? So the next, now that I know the engine's running somewhere near where it should be, which is a big relief, it's going to get some fresh coolant, so that's the next job. And then I'm going to carry on with a few more cosmetic bits and bobs, but an MOT will be the next port of call as well, because I want to get this road legal so that I can put some miles on it, and it's the best way to get to know a car and find out what else it needs. And so I think it's not far off an MOT, so if we can get an MOT done, that would be really cool. Get it road legal and just use it a little bit, and go from there. Well, there we are then, we're all sorted for the Missfire. That's another one ticked off. Super happy that the engine's running how it should, revving up like it should, sounds like an MR2, smells like an MR2. So that's great news. I can carry on now. There's a few more jobs yet. Coolant, thermostat, find out what's going on. Looks like there could be a bit of a power steering leak. Get the car MOT'd, start using it. Do some more cosmetic work, fix a few things, change the wheels. Big list, but we'll keep chipping away, and hopefully by the time spring comes along we can get the car out to a few shows and do a few trips. Hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. That really helps me build the channel, and it helps with the YouTube algorithm and all that fancy stuff that goes on behind the scenes. So tune in next time. We'll be working again on the MR2 and other projects, and drive safely and take care. Bye bye.